All right, this interview we've got here is with our good buddy Gary Corbett of Kiss fame, Cyndi Lauper fame. Who else? He's worked with quite a few
my
people.
gosh.
The Marleys. The
Marley
Marleys.
Brothers.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
like all the
Every one
Marleys.
of
Yeah.
Marley's sons, not the brothers, the sons.
Well, the sons,
Well,
yeah.
the sons are brothers.
That's true.
Jesus Christ.
And
See what we have to put up with, people?
Okay,
Anyway,
and it was an
enjoy
awesome
it.
interview.
Do what?
and you got the twins too.
The twins. Oh, yes.
Duh.
The Nelson
Duh.
twins.
The Nelson twins.
Cool.
That's his-
Anyway,
his
enjoy
latest
the
one.
interview.
Hey, this is the Ages of Rock podcast coming to you from the Rock N Pod Expo in Nashville, Tennessee. We have Gary Corbett with us.
All right.
How you doing? Good
How you-
afternoon.
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
So, Gary, we were just talking about the long trip that Gary had to get here today.
took me
which
15 minutes.
Let's see, I drove 3 hours. You guys drove 3 hours. Yeah. But there's some people, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but there are people here that have flown from San Francisco,
I heard.
Philadelphia.
I was just asking Aaron about that, how far people have traveled, and he told me some people from Germany are here and
Oh,
Ireland.
wow, really? Wow. Wow. They're probably going to stop. They just want to come to see our podcast. I'm sure that's what it's
Why
about.
they're here.
Or not. Probably not what it's about. So what have you been up to these days?
Well, there you go.
It's like swallowing?
just been finishing up an album with the Nelson twins.
Oh,
And,
yeah, cool.
Yeah, I've been working on us. They both live here in town, and we've been friends since they opened for Cinderella in '91. And they called me up to record some demos with them, and one thing led to another, and it's turned into a band, and it's a really cool project. So really enjoying it. I had the last 2 years off. I had to have a couple of shoulder surgeries.
Oh.
So I've been at home for a little while, forced vacation.
Yeah, you've been on a forced vacation too, right?
Yeah, I had a little foot action going on, but yeah, I know how that goes.
Getting old sucks.
It does. It gets
The age thing is a bitch, man.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, shut up. He's the baby of the group.
I'm
There's
only
always one,
47.
right? There's only one.
Yeah, there's always one. I remember
one.
when I used to be that guy.
Yeah. I don't remember being that. At some point, I guess I was that guy.
exactly.
So, what was it like working with Nelson? You like, I remember those guys from '91. I mean, I love that record. And I actually have a 16-year-old, and he likes that record too. So it's kind of cool.
Well,
he has the same
they're really
musical taste.
talented guys. They write pop songs and good pop songs endure time.
Yeah.
And so they the project that we're doing now is a little bit more closer to what their dad was doing when he passed away with the Stone Canyon Band. Sorry, not Little River Band. Stone Canyon Band, which is more like almost like an Eagles vibe.
Oh, wow,
that's
that's cool,
harmonies and that's what the project that we're working on together is. And I think they still do the Nelson thing from time to time. They'll release a record, but this is definitely a departure from that style.
Interesting. I think Gunner's going to be here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, Gunner's supposed to be here sometime today.
Yeah.
So
Which will be cool. So can you talk to us a little bit about your time in Kiss?
Sure. What do you want to know?
Everything. Well, I've read the Kiss and Tell book, which tells me that there were times you were there and times you weren't there. So
Yes, that's very true. When I first started with them on the Crazy Nights tour, at the beginning of that tour, the ticket sales were a little less than stellar. And because of that, they were trying to trim the budget. And so I was a victim of that.
You were the trim.
Yeah, I was the trim, yes. So I had, a couple of shortened trips, but eventually things got back to normal, and once I started with them again that summer for the Monsters of Rock tour that we did over in Europe, then from that point on, anytime they were on the road, I was always there with them for the time I was there.
But it's kind of interesting because, we all know that there were keyboards going on back there, but they were hidden, and I don't understand why bands do that. I mean, I know that they do, and I don't get it because...
Well, they did it a lot more in the 80s during that genre of music. And there was a lot of bands that did it that I didn't quite understand why they did it. But a band like Kiss, where it's four guys, such a strong image, I could understand why they didn't want it. And besides, Gene didn't really like the keyboard.
Well, that's a surprise.
Yeah.
But Bruce played a little bit too, right?
Well, there was that one. What was it? Reason to Live, I believe it was. That had a lot of keyboards on the record, and I guess they figured that one, if there were those keyboard parts were there, and there was nobody visibly playing them, it would kind of look strange. So he would start the song, and I was playing with him, and then about halfway through, like second chorus, I think it was when he would stop playing completely and swing the guitar around. But he did play a little bit.
Cool. Your question?
My question is not Kiss related.
Great. We don't want it. Good. That's even better.
Now, I know you've done some work with Cyndi Lauper. You want to tell the audience about that?
Sure. I was fortunate enough to be writing music with a guy back in the early 80s that was managed by the same person that managed her. And it was at a point where she had just finished the Blue Angel thing. That band was breaking up. She was shopping her solo deal, and she was coming over to do the vocals for us on our songwriting demos, basically, just as a favor. And we had already written the music for She Bop, but we didn't have lyrics to it, and we weren't really sure what we were going to do with it. But she had come over to sing other songs and heard it by accident and asked if she could finish write the lyrics, and she said she would record it on our album when she got a deal, which she ultimately obviously did. Yeah. And the rest is history, as they say. Because I was grateful. I loved her. I was a big Blue Angel fan because I was in New York at the time, and she was just a powerhouse. You go see her live, and she was amazing. And so I was already a fan. So I was thrilled just to work with her on the demos that we were doing. And when she said she wanted to do the song, we were like, yeah, okay, great. Blue Angel didn't sell that many records, so I didn't really expect her to sell that many records. But glad she proved me wrong.
So that's a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Now, did you co-write anything else with her?
No, it was just that one. It was all, that record, that first record was done so quickly that they kind of got songs from a million different places, and they had a lot of good ones on that record, that first record.
Wow. Who else have you worked with?
Cinderella, Debbie Gibson, Stephen Marley, Damian Marley, Ziggy Marley. I worked with all the Marley sons, all the sons of Bob. Because I lived in Miami for a few years, and they're based out of there. And those guys are they're so talented.
Oh, yeah.
They're unbelievable.
Yeah, they definitely got that gene.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about those guys, well, they're from a few different moms. So they all look different from each other, but when you look at each one individually, you could definitely see Bob in every one of them, but not in the same way in any two. It's really an interesting thing. But they all got some of his talent, and again, they're all different. Some are more traditional reggae. Some of them are more towards the hip hop side, but yet they all have an element of him. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's really interesting with Nashville how it's became, how many people down here that live around here, because you're like going, holy moly, and it's a mix. It's not just country. You've got all your rock people, a lot of rock people, and even in the suburbs to Franklin and areas like that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much music is going on down here right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's what brought me here. I came into town, I was playing with Molly Hatchet back in 2004, and we had a show here at I forgot the name of it was an amphitheater that was here that has since closed. But it was the last show I was doing with them, and I ran into an old friend who lived here, and he said, you should really come and check out this town. And I did the following weekend. I fell in love with it, and within 2 weeks I bought a house and moved from Miami.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's a big move from Miami to Nashville, Tennessee. Weather's a little different.
Weather's different. The vibe is a little different. I missed the beach.
Yeah.
But there was no live music scene in Miami. It was all DJ clubs, dance clubs, electronic, and I enjoy that music, and I enjoy making that music as long as I'm making other music.
Right.
But down there was nothing but that, and so it got a little stale after a while. the beach could only be so beautiful, you know.
Yeah, for so long.
Yeah.
So,
Time
do
to
you
go.
prefer writing, or do you like performing more? I mean, what's your or does it change a lot? You know,
Yeah, I need the change. I need the variety. You know, back in the 80s and 90s when I was touring a lot, even from one tour to the next, the bands that I played with had a lot of variety. You know, I would do a Kiss tour and then do a Debbie Gibson tour, then do a Lou Gramm tour and then do a Taylor Dane tour.
Right.
You know, and that's what kept me happy, because I enjoy all styles of music, and when I'm doing one for too long, I miss the others.
Exactly.
You know, and I don't know that that's a good thing. I remember having a conversation back then with Gene Simmons about that, and he said to me that it wasn't a good thing, that I should focus on one style of music because it could tend to confuse people.
Play the same 18 songs
every night for the rest of your life.
Well, yeah.
We've had this discussion many, many times.
Yeah.
We only have this discussion when we talk about them.
Yeah, but it's about every week.
But, you know, there is some validity to it. You know, I didn't agree with him at the time, and of course I didn't change the way I chose what I did. But looking back, I might have been more successful if I stuck with one genre. So
Right.
That, you know, and I could see his point now, but I just wouldn't have been happy.
But you didn't have that opportunity to really get burnt out on something. You know, you
Exactly.
kept it fresh for you. And,
Exactly.
and,
Even working in the
for writing,
studio.
too. That would
Yes.
give you more ideas for writing. You're not writing the same type of material.
Absolutely. And you know, when I work in the studio, for too long, I miss playing with a live band, and vice versa. And I just need to do all of it, you know, at one time or another. I just keep it changing.
Exactly.
It does make you wonder if Gene has just like the same 16 songs on his phone. You know, it's just.
I don't think you're far off.
No, but it's kind of cool. I mean, have you seen Gene on the solo tour?
No.
It's really cool because he's doing some kind of obscure stuff. And it's because of the band. The band is a group of guys from. Do you know those guys?
I know Philip very well.
Oh, I mean, they're phenomenal.
Yes.
And it's pushing him to do some stuff that he wouldn't normally do, which is great for us because that's what we want to see. I mean, Alan and I went, and it was crazy good.
Well, Philip and I worked together. Philip and I played with a country singer named Chris Cagle. Do you know Chris?
Oh,
Cagle?
yeah.
I was touring with him until I had a break for my shoulder surgeries. That's who I had been touring with. And Philip was his guitar player for a while. And he is a huge Kiss fan. When I first started working with Cagle, he kept it from me for a while. But then once we got to know each other, one morning at breakfast, he started with the questions. And I think it was on his birthday. His wife sent him out as a gift a Kiss lunchbox.
There you go.
And he was so excited. So I knew it was over. But, you know, we started talking at that point about it. And he's such a diehard Kiss fan that I'm sure that he must be up Gene's butt because he knows everything. And he's going to be pulling out all the obscurest things.
Yeah, Decibel Geek did an interview with those guys, and it is a really good interview. And they talked a lot about that you know, they'll start playing something, and then Gene will walk in and go, "What are you guys playing?" Yeah. And then, you know, well, you should know this. So
you wrote this damn song.
Right, exactly.
And then he's like, "Oh yeah," and then they'll start playing it for a bit, and then all of a sudden they play it, and then they'll do it that night, which, you know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, I know that when we go to a Kiss show nowadays, it'd be nice to see that happen once or twice. So, but it's, you know, it is what it is, and we got to take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, and I could tell you from firsthand that the problem with not playing those same 18 songs, the fans get really angry. I remember when I first started with them on the Crazy Nights tour, that album was new, and they tried, when we first started the tour, we were doing like 4 or 5 songs off the record. And there were a lot of classic Kiss songs that we weren't doing. And there were so many complaints from the diehard fans. And that summer for the Monsters tour, that's when they started adding back in songs like Strutter and Deuce and all the real diehard classics. And it's the reviews of the shows got better, and the response from the audience got better, and it's what the fans want to hear, and it's frustrating though.
You know, I can understand that because when I go to a Kiss show, I know all of their songs. I don't care what I hear.
Right.
When I go to a Journey show, I know the 17 songs I want to hear.
Right.
Same with Foreigner.
And when you're at a Journey show and they say, "Hey, we're going to play something from our new record,"
Okay, I'm going to go take a piss.
yeah.
Well, I got a good story about that. We went. I went with my wife and I went with another couple to see Foreigner here in Nashville a couple weeks ago, and you know, Cheap Trick came out. They're on Big Machine Records here and played 4 songs off the new album, like 3 right in a row. So they opened with Dream Police, played 3 other new songs, and everybody sat down, and I'm looking at my buddy, and he goes, "This sucks." And I'm like,
"That's the problem.
It's new stuff. You just got to hang on." And then I went to see him again about a week later in Indianapolis, because that's where I live, and it was definitely a Cheap Trick set list you're used to hearing, and it was like, okay, that's much better. And it was really record label, you know, and I get that piece, but
it's
the other,
hard as the artist doing it. When you think about them, they're the ones that have to get up and play those same songs every night, you know, and it does get old.
I'm sure it does.
Find new ways to keep it interesting when you're doing it.
Yeah. What do you listen to nowadays?
A little bit of everything. It depends on, you know, it really depends on what I'm actually doing at the time. If I'm like, I've been doing a lot of film and TV stuff as well, and so when I was doing the film, I was listening to a lot of orchestra stuff because I was dealing with that type of music. It really depends on what I'm working on more. But if you're talking about for my own personal enjoyment where nothing else matters, I would say probably the old classics. You know, the stuff that I listened to when I was in high school.
I think that's the fallback for all of us.
Yeah, yeah.
That we were familiar with, and something that brings back the memories and that stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing better than listening to one of your old favorites that you haven't heard in a while. You know?
Exactly.
And all the memories come rushing back.
Yeah, we recently did we did 3 episodes where we all have sons, so we had our sons pick 15 songs that are on their iPod or on their phone, and then they gave them to us and we reviewed them, which was really.
We got 3 different lists.
We got 3 totally different lists. My son's 16. Yours is 21? 21 and
22.
22. And it was very interesting. My 16-year-old had the closest list to what we listened to than the other ones did, which I was very proud of.
Now, so he's your new favorite now.
Exactly. And he's my concert buddy. I mean, it's kind of wild because we were like driving down the road. And 3 summers ago, and he heard an ad for Whitesnake was going to be in Indianapolis. Like 3 days later, and he goes, "Are we not going to that show?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Really? You're not going to take me to that?" And I'm like,
"That's great.
Yes, I guess I am."
Yeah, good.
So we went and got tickets, and we had a blast. I mean, and Whitford St. Holmes opened, and oh my God,
that's awesome.
That was a killer show.
Great.
It was great, but yeah, it is interesting. You know, they all have different. But we found that we do that because it opens us up to listen to new music, and that's really what helped.
Or else, otherwise, where do you find it? Or how do you know what's good? And you know, it's such a different world than when we were growing up.
It is.
There's no central record store to go to where you can find out what's new.
You know, music's almost disposable nowadays. You know, it's not about buying an album; it's about buying a single. And
the thing is, instead of having the eight, you know, have like 10 8-tracks in your car, you got the internet, which you got every freaking song available to you. You don't know where to start.
Right.
It's really hard.
It's a little strange. It really is, especially being in the business. And it's not the same business I started out being in. It's such a different world. It's in a lot of ways it's exciting and you know limitless and all of that stuff. If you're tech savvy and web savvy and know how to take advantage of it, it's amazing. But you know, for the guys that are set in their ways, it's the death. You know?
Yeah, and a lot of bands, you know, young bands, it's all about multimedia. And we interviewed a band the other day, and that's how they got called Inglorious. They're out of the UK, out of England.
And they use social media. I mean, and it even said, you know, they actually stirred up their own hype. You know, and people were going, by the time they did their first show, they sold out because they had promoted themselves as the big new thing, and they are. I mean, and they could back it up. That's the main thing.
That's you know, and for bands that actually have talent, it's an amazing thing. But it also levels the playing field that every person with a laptop thinks they're a producer. So there's a lot more content that sucks. You know, and how do you get through it all? You know, that to me is the challenge now.
Yeah, and that's a good point because people put out whatever they put out. I mean, we've had some stuff that's been sent to us that really is not very good.
And it makes you wonder what they're hearing when they listen to it, because it's nowhere close to good. And 20 years ago, you would have had an A&R guy as a filter to say, no, this is
well, now
not
everybody
good
can
enough.
put something out, you know. And my theory about that is somebody didn't love them enough to tell them that this really isn't all
Right.
that good.
You find a lot of those albums too that we get sent, they're self-produced. They don't have anybody in there to say, you know what, dude, that song sucks.
And there's a reason why that is necessary.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
from the record company guys to the producer being a different person to the engineer being a different.
Kiss's last 2 albums have been self-produced. You know, they're not the best albums that they've had. You know, and why is that? You know,
Yeah,
somebody didn't tell them that it wasn't that good. You know?
Right, exactly. And there's
Oh,
no.
I'm sure somebody told them, they just didn't listen.
Oh, I don't think Gene gives a shit. So,
Exactly.
or actually, either one of them. It's really what they want to do. Yep.
All right.
Hey, thanks. We really appreciate you coming.
my
Hold on a
pleasure.
second. Why don't you tell the listeners how to find you?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Social media, website.
Well, Gary Corbett, I'm on Facebook. Gary Corbett at Comcast.net is the email. It's
There you go.
real simple.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to stop by.
Thank you. It was my
Thank you very
pleasure.
much.
Thanks for having
So
me.
much, man.
Appreciate it.
All right.